H for cutting my sister-in-law out of my life, even if it disrupts family dynamics. Update 3. Uptree. It's been a while and I know that so many of you have been waiting on updates for this situation. There finally is something to report to you hungry Reddit readers. Heads up, there has been no resolution yet, but I can feel it coming fast and soon, hopefully. Last we left off was the Mother's Day incident. Since then there has been a relative amount of dead air between everyone. Margaret is still posting bullshit on the internet. Fern is still turtling the situation. Tom has been pretty quiet. And Phil is still avoiding movement on the whole thing, however. Mill has finally put her foot down. Recently there was some sort of impromptu excursion that Phil went on to visit some old family friends in another state. Phil grew up with them, I guess. And they haven't seen each other in a while, so he took Mill out there to visit. Phil got a hotel while they were staying there. Apparently about halfway through the trip, Margaret and Corey showed up. I'm not sure who initiated it, but the visits were stacked intentionally by one party or the other. There was about 2 days of overlap, with the in-laws arriving first, then Margaret, Corey, the 4 kids afterwards. Both parties were aware of the other. I have strong suspicions that this is why Phil chose to stay at a hotel, instead of with the friend in the first place. Anyway, things were wonderful when just the in-laws were there. But once Margaret's tribe showed up, it went on a spiral pretty quickly. Illa was telling me that it immediately started with the passive-aggressive comments, nothing new there for anyone. So she just ignored it mostly. Emil made it a point to treat Margaret, Corey, the kids like she was meeting them for the first time. Polite, respectful, and reserved. The response to this was Margaret intentionally, deliberately and obviously interfering any time one of her children approached Mill. Emil was unable to get a hug, a word of conversation, or virtually any time with the kids because Margaret kept redirecting them to other people. Pretty scummy, but it didn't stop there. There was some sort of dinner planned on the second overlap day. Mill and Phil had gone out to explore the state that morning, and Mill decided to stay behind at the hotel afterwards to catch a quick nap. Phil went to the friend's house without her. Margaret and Corey were at the family friend's house when this was happening, and I guess Mel taking a nap was a big-ass problem for Margaret. Margaret was starving and hadn't eaten all day, and apparently this was Mel's fault. Mel always does this, she has no respect. It went on from there, and she quickly started trying to campaign with a family friend, absolutely dragging Elle through the mud and talking about how Mel always has to have her way. Apparently the family friend did not take kindly to this, and nipped it pretty quickly, which entirely soured the mood for dinner by the time Mel arrived. There was a lot of tension and more passive-aggressive comments over the evening. Emma wasn't aware of anything but the weird vibes over dinner, and Phil finally told her the entire story of Margaret's antics on the way back to the hotel room. So now that everyone is caught up, the most recent development happened when the whole family got together yesterday. Sans Margaret and Corey, who are still out of state. Mel and I were able to catch up and I got the whole story. Apparently this overlap in the trip was going to be the determining factor for Mel. If things were civil and respectful, she would go to Italy with the family. If not, she was going to stay behind. Well, not only is she staying behind, but she has finally had enough of Margaret all around. Mel was not angry or aggressive about it, but she gave Phil no room for conversation once she made the decision she made. Mel is definitely not going to pay for Margaret's car anymore. Mel also refuses to be a co-signer on Margaret's lease again. I guess it's coming up soon? The timeline is fuzzy on that one for me. And the big whammy, Mel does not want Margaret, Corey, or the kids at the house anymore, period. She no longer cares that this means she won't be babysitting the kids anymore. In Mil's words, she knows I can't have kids and she brings it up all the time. So it should come as no surprise to her that I have no problem not seeing them. Because I won't know what I'm missing. I don't have kids, remember. She's thankful for that, remember. So take them, it doesn't mean anything to me anymore, because it's not like she lets me really see them anyway. I'm not sure how this impacts Phil. But neither of us really care at this point. Solidarity within the Margaret sucks, we've had enough camp. During the conversation I made it a point to tell her that I was proud of her. Mil has really been caught in the crosshairs for a long time, and it was awesome to hear that she has stopped waiting for Phil to make decisions about this. Emil told me quite plainly, I've decided that I don't like Margaret. She's just a mean person. And maybe it's cold, but she can take the kids with her at this point. I'll survive without them, it hurts, but it's not like I'm gonna die if she suddenly disappears from my life. Hell yeah, go Mel. I told her that Tom also can't stand her, and that's why we arrive and leave early from family functions. He doesn't want to be around her at all if he can help it. That made her smile. I'm not sure how relevant this is, but it was something I noticed over the course of the conversation between myself and Mile. Fern has been firmly I'm staying out of it these days, however. He milled around the conversation long enough for me to suspect he was listening in. He stood near us, not saying anything and busying himself with a 5-minute task that apparently turned into a 20-minute task. I'm not sure what this is about. I don't think he is reporting to Margaret or anything. He wouldn't ruin his own day like that. I think he genuinely wanted to know what was going on, but just really didn't participate in the convo. I'm seriously hoping that Fern is the next to put a foot down with Margaret at that point. The only person left on the fence would be Phil. Fern still calls me about Margaret sometimes, but he's much more elusive and sheepish than he used to be. It's almost like he's unsure of what to do other than just let it play out. As much as Fern loves Margaret, he's about at the end of his rope as well, and I think, ultimately, he's just wrestling with his feelings right now. Anyway, Mel and I made plans to hang out while the family is in Italy. We have a spa day planned. A trip to a tea house, horseback riding, all kinds of cool stuff. We also laughed about how the whole family is going to spend an entire week in Italy, trapped with Margaret, while we get to have a vacation fully away from all the drama. It made me happy to see that Mel did not give in to the pressure that she was under to go for the sake of her husband. It really did. Also to see the excitement on her face while we were planning our week. God, what a priceless, wonderful moment to savor. She drew her line, and I couldn't be prouder. The rest of the family, however, is still a go for Italy. This was honestly infuriating to me. How many more chances does this person get? I had previously stated that I believe Phil to be a good father, and he is. But he is also a huge coward. I talked to Tom about this yesterday again. My poor husband gets an earful about this every time we come home from a family event. I still genuinely do not understand why he would choose to continue to allow a bomb in his house with the justification that he doesn't know how to defuse it. Homie, just throw the bomb out of your house, woof. Everyone is getting hit with shrapnel and it's nuts. I again iterated to Tom that I don't understand why the problem is still allowed to go on this amazing vacation despite being an entitled, malicious brat, but Mel and I have to stay home, because we have no desire to deal with her nonsense. Italy's amazing and we always have a good time. Fern and Tom have both told me, separately, that their plans are to go do something else away from her, when she starts acting up. I can't imagine how that is supposed to be relaxing. I'm not going to spend a crap ton of money to go on a vacation just to sign up for it being ruined. Or to have to adjust my plans around someone who can't chill out for more than 30 seconds at a time. We had a long conversation where I again brought up that it would be in Margaret's best interest to stop her bullshit, if there was serious threat to her current lifestyle. Tom told me that it is unlikely that anything the family says or does would change her behavior, or make her come to reality. I guess they've been here before with Margaret in their younger years. Tom told me this whole story about how Margaret was confronted with something, not sure what, by the family and was told to shape up or ship out. She left home, shacked up with a bunch of random people for a place to live, and bounced around couches for a while, and refused to come home. I guess all she had to do in that instance was apologize. But she was so hell-bent on the idea that everyone was out to get her that she chose virtual homelessness instead. Tom told me that Corey was the one who got Margaret off of random couches. This whole story threw me for a whirlwind. Tom said, "You don't know Margaret. She will put herself on death's doorstep before she admits that she's wrong, or that she screwed up. It's easier for her to play the victim, spin some bullshit, and lay down the sympathy card than it is for her to deflate her ego." My response to that was, tell me again why she's still invited to Italy? The conversation went virtually nowhere after that. Basically the same thing all over again. Dad has to do it. It's a tough situation. You don't understand, because you aren't family. I'm just going to do my own thing. Blah blah blah. The situation is maddening still. However, I have a feeling that Margaret is going to pop off during the vacation. Without me or Mel there, she can do her passive-aggressive shit-talking thing pretty freely. I'm sure that it's going to be very, very hard for the rest of the family to ignore it for a week straight without reprieve. I told Tom that if he had any sense, he would use it as an opportunity to push his father's feet to finally move. Although I have faith in my husband doing the right and brave thing, I also know that the dynamic is working against him in this case. We will see what happens. The vacation is set to take place in a little under 2 months. I'm not sure if I will have another update for you guys until then. But if I do, you can definitely expect it to be on here. Tom promised to keep me updated while in Italy, so Mel and I know what to expect when everyone gets back. I really do have a feeling that this Italy trip is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back if it goes sour. Despite all the posturing, I'm certain that everyone going knows that when it comes to Margaret, it's an inevitability that chaos will ensue. especially because Margaret, her 4 kids, Corey and Fern all are staying in a cheap hotel while the entire rest of the family rented a townhouse for the week. It's going to be funny sitting on the sidelines with Elle, away from all of that. However, I know that the group is going to come back absolutely depleted. Fingers crossed that Italy is the thing that finally causes everyone to actually put an end to this sideshow. Have Margaret and the bio mother been evaluated for mental illness? Tom has told me that he thinks his bio mom might have struggled with bipolar disorder, but that is unconfirmed. To my knowledge, Margaret is currently without any formally diagnosed mental illnesses. OP. Why aren't you giving your husband pushback for planning to go on this vacation? Oh, trust me, I put Tom on the spot all the time for this. If you dislike her so much, why continue to associate? The kids, my dad, it's difficult. Like, dude, no it's not. You see the kids at family functions, that's it. Your dad is dragging ass. Why are we supporting idle behavior in the face of this? The whole bunch seems in freeze mode. It's frustrating, but the only thing I can do is what I have been doing. Final update. It's really hard for me to believe that 6 months went by since this fiasco. I am so sorry for making you all wait for so long. There has been a lot going on, as you will soon see, and I have not had time to update anyone on this. I also thought it would be a good idea for things to settle down first. A lot of you might be disappointed, but here is what happened. Italy did not go smoothly for almost anyone who saw that one coming. Don't get me wrong, they had a fun time, but the ever-constant chaos that seems to follow the family everywhere was right along with them. Shortest version possible. Per Fern, who is the only one I am still in contact with. Margaret, Corey and Fern all shared a hotel room away from the rest of the family. Fern was having a bit of a hard time being around Margaret, who raged basically the whole time, so he offered to switch spots with the family friend that went with them. Margaret turned this into a whose side are you on kind of scenario, and spent the rest of the trip talking shit, and doing the histrionic thing that she likes to do. Her tribe alternated between engaging with the family in short bursts and retreating into their own little hole, whenever things didn't go Margaret's way. Surprisingly, this was the least stressful thing that happened to the family. As it turns out, it was actually Tom who ruined it for everyone. As Fern tells it, he was shithoused almost the whole time, and started arguments with almost everyone, including Fern himself, who Tom brought to tears. Phil had to intervene on multiple occasions, because Tom was getting very out of hand and basically causing problems for damn near the whole family. Everything from kicking over trash cans on the street, to verbally attacking Fern, to antagonizing things with Margaret, to walking off by himself and screaming at nothing. A lot of I ruin everything I touch and get the away from me type of things. Apparently he also had a full mental breakdown over me separating from him, but he continued to aggressively take it out on virtually everyone that was out there in Italy with him. At the tail end of the trip, he fully cried and broke down and spoke to Fern, and told him everything that was happening at home. Editor's note. No, we did not miss an update. This is the first time the separation was mentioned. Right before they all left, I spent a brief period of time with Mill. We got brunch and talked for a lot of hours. It was pleasant. But that conversation helped me firmly make up my mind. I knew it was time to consider separating from my husband, and that it might be the last time I was going to see her. We cried about it, and the more we both talked, the more it seemed like staying was a bad idea for me. She fully supported my decision, and promised to keep in touch. Originally the decision was around a trial separation. I had enough of the whole thing, and just needed my space away from the circus for a while. But I still loved him, so divorce was not yet firmly on the table. I realized that this is the dynamic that I will potentially be raising my own children in. The dysfunction was insanity, and looking back on it, I would be lying to myself if I said that Tom and Margaret were totally different people. Tom himself would rage out over seemingly minute things, or shut down and sulk when things didn't go his way too. The lack of communication, the outbursts, the complete shit show was getting to me. I know that the family has a lot of trauma. As a unit, I mean, clearly. But at the end of the day I have my own peace to prioritize, so I felt that moving out would be a solid solution. Tom and I had talked about this shortly before everyone left for Italy. We were firmly on the same page about it, and everything seemed amicable. The agreement was for us both to enjoy our time apart, then to come together after Italy to really work on our marriage. To my knowledge at this time, everything in Italy was going smoothly. Tom gave no indication whatsoever that he was struggling, or that there was chaos in the area. I assumed, of course, because of Margaret, but to be completely frank, there was no sign over the phone that there was anything wrong. We did not talk about the separation, so I was under the impression we were still on the same page. So while Tom was raging in Italy, I packed my stuff and moved to my own place exactly as we had discussed. Unfortunately, this turned out to be a wrong move in Tom's book. The whole thing went to hell, pretty much the second he got back to the house. The way he behaved, it was like looking Margaret in the face, but times 10. So angry, so irrational, so intensely cruel and seeping with hatred. It didn't go according to plan for him, and I think he genuinely didn't take me seriously when I said I needed a break. As it turns out, I was serious as a heart attack, and he really didn't like that. During this time is when Fern told me everything that happened. He gave me a blow-by-blow of the entire Italy trip, including his last conversation with Tom. 100% of the information I have has come directly from Fern, who is by a landslide the sanest of the blood relatives. Naturally, during the fiasco of me leaving, I confronted Tom about this, specifically the last conversation they had. I asked him why he was being so hostile, when this was a discussed agreement that we came to an amicable decision on. I pointedly asked him how he can come home and behave this way towards me when he was upset with me leaving in the first place. In my mind, it would have made more sense to actually communicate our feelings instead of, quite frankly, raging out and being a dickhead. Tom was very defensive, and essentially cussed me out. You don't know anything. Oh, because you were there, right? Get out of my face, call the cops if you're so pressed about it. It was quite nasty, actually. I won't say it wasn't predictable, but I certainly didn't see it going as far as it went. So, I made the next decision, which is what half of you on Reddit proposed to me on the very first post about this situation way back when. After Tom made it clear that he viewed me as an enemy for standing up for myself, I knew divorce was the best option. I have not seen him nor been in contact with him since July, which is the last day I had any possessions in the house. I have since gotten the hell out of there, and I am currently on NC with the entire family. With the exception of Fern, who I will always love and adore. I am flying back home to Australia this week to see some relatives over the holidays, and I couldn't be happier with my decision to leave my soon-to-be ex-husband behind. My life has been so quiet since I left. I'll admit, sometimes I do miss the drama. It could be entertaining at times, but mostly I'm just glad that I don't have to conform to someone else's whack idea that filtering your boundaries, or being a doormat, is the best option for conflict solving and resolution. To my knowledge, no one has talked to Margaret about her behavior, and Tom has continued to behave the same way he did in Italy. Makes sense, and I am thankful for all the advice I received on here. Rereading the comments, I laugh a lot more at them. You guys saw things that I couldn't. And I think if I hadn't come on here I would still be in a chaotic marriage, and living in a circus tent. I wish that family the best, but unless they all collectively start going to intensive therapy, I doubt it will ever change. Nuts. Crazy. Insane. No thank you, stay blessed, but do it way the hell over there, away from me.